Elections Commission certified 8 candidates to appear on Wisconsin's ballot this November, even though one has suspended his campaign and asked to actually be taken off. Our State Capitol Bureau Chief, Vanessa Kelson, tells us more about the impact third-party candidates can have on Wisconsin's elections.
While the attention this fall is on Democrats and Republicans, thousands of Wisconsinites are focused on third and independent party candidates. And in a battleground state like Wisconsin with razor-thin margins, every vote counts.
Oh, I feel really good. It gives me and people throughout the state somebody to vote their conscience.
In a presidential election, Pete Karras has never voted for a Republican or a Democrat.
The Wisconsin Green Party is not going to take this sitting down.
The Wisconsin Elections Commission voting to keep 8 presidential candidates on Wisconsin's ballot, including RFK Jr., Jill Stein, and Cornel West.
No matter how we do it, we'll have a lawsuit tomorrow morning.
RFK Jr.'s campaign sent a letter to the commission asking for his name to be removed from Wisconsin's ballot.
Robert F. Kennedy has to stay on the ballot.
But Wisconsin state statute details if you file nomination papers and qualify, there are no takebacks. Your name stays on the ballot unless you die.
He can appeal it tomorrow if he thinks it's unfair, but I don't see what sort of leeway we have to ignore a very specific statute.
The last 4 out of 6 presidential elections were decided by less than a percentage point in Wisconsin. And while Karras says independent voters wouldn't vote at all if not for a third-party candidate, having 8 names to choose from on Wisconsin's ballot could play a key role in the election. For now, in Madison, Vanessa Kelson.
And here's the full list of third-party and independent candidates on Wisconsin's ballot. Besides Green Party's Jill Stein, they include Randall Terry of the Constitution Party, Chase Oliver of the Libertarian Party, Claudia De La Cruz of the Socialism and Liberation Party, and independent candidates Cornel West and RFK Jr.